So, the first game Amazon Studios published, Crucible, a free-to-play multiplayer third-person shooter developed by Relentless Studios, was such a massive cluster doink that they unreleased it from its early access to go back and desperately tried to fix it. That's how badly it was received. Ouch. But while that was the first game they launched, even if it was only early access, that wasn't the first game Amazon announced from their game studios. New World was. It's from a completely different development team, so don't panic too much if you played Crucible and found out what an awful pile of crap it was. But New World was the first game originally announced by Amazon Game Studios when Amazon Game Studios was revealed as a thing that existed. And since February this year, I've had access to the closed alpha. I wasn't allowed to talk about it, of course, or share any video or screenshots. I'm still not allowed to share any video or screenshots from that alpha portion. It was all under, and still is under, a non-disclosure agreement. But today, New World slides into a limited time open beta stage. And I am allowed to talk about it. I am allowed to record it and show you my recordings. I'm even allowed to stream it, which I will be doing, by the way, later today over on twitch.tv/bluntnate. Feel free to join me. They did server resets for the beta, so you'll only be seeing very early game footage in this video. It's not truly representative of what the game is, so in that context, I want to say things like gathering and combat aren't looking as fast or dynamic. In particular, combat's not as dynamic and flexible as it starts becoming a little deeper into the character level progression. So don't piss and whine about how long it's taking me to chop down a tree or how limited and boring combat looks. It doesn't stay that way, I promise you. This stuff gets much better and much more interesting by the time you're in the late teens of leveling. It doesn't take all that long. But before we talk specifically about gameplay and my impressions of it so far, let's stand up some frameworks to hang it from. Hello again, I am Blunty. Thank you for the click and your attention, at least so far, but can I ask for just a bit more attention and clicking in the form of a comment, a thumb, maybe both, maybe even hit that bell thing. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much if you do that. I really do appreciate it. We all have to join together to fight against the monster that is the YouTube algorithm because it hates us all. So, New World is an MMORPG for those too fresh to gaming, or perhaps you've just recently hit puberty and are ready to see what gaming is beyond Fortnite dances, and you're not familiar with the acronym. It's a massively multiplayer online role-playing video game. The game was previously scheduled to launch already, originally slated for May 2020. Then, when the health crisis hit and everyone started working from home, it was delayed a bit to allow them some padding for that and pushed it to August 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen, or you'd all be hearing about it a lot more by now, maybe even playing it for yourself. It was recently delayed again until early 2021. No more specific than that, because quite frankly, the world is a little uncertain at the moment, isn't it? Now, all of this is frustrating to people with pre-orders and others anticipating the launch, but as annoying as delays like this can be, it's a good thing. Especially for an MMO where a bad first impression can see disappointed players never return, and games like this live or die by their active player base. That said, I have played through the early game progression 3 times already in the alphas. The first reset was a choice, so I could try it again after quickly familiarizing myself with the controls and UI. The next couple were after server wipes in the alpha, and the beta being my 4th time because they've wiped the servers again, as I said. And the early game stuff has seen some significant changes and improvements just over the last 6 months or so. And I rather like the early game. I mean, it can be achingly slow to gather materials, mining and chopping trees, and even skinning animals feels like it takes forever until you start leveling up those particular skills. And the combat gets far more interesting once you've drilled down into the skill tree a bit deeper, but it's still an early game that had me in my seat for quite long sessions without really feeling bored or disinterested. I wanted to keep going, and that's a pretty good sign. Now, I am not what you'd call a hardcore MMO player. I've tried many. I've a fair stack of hours in World of Warcraft Classic when that launched, and quite a few more hours in Phantasy Star Online 2. 2 very different takes on the MMO, to be sure. But New World is different again to either of those. It's more grounded in a real, living, sword and sorcery, crowded, shared world like WoW is. Unlike Phantasy Star's shared lobbies, but instance sort of corridor levels. But New World is also an active combat game, like PSO2 is. Not entirely like either example. While WoW is the classic, even archetypal, tab-targeting, hotbar-heavy, very mechanical and deliberate MMORPG combat, and PSO2's combat is active, fast and splashy, and even arcadey at times. New World's combat is different to both. It's a highly skill-based system. It's heavily reliant on timing and dodging and blocking and counterattacking. It's not at all arcadey, button-mashy stuff, but it's way more dynamic and exciting than traditional tag-targeting stuff, at least in my opinion. Your mileage may vary because that is very much a taste-based thing, isn't it? Personally, I'm drawn to the short-range, faster melee classes of weapon. The sword and shield combo is pretty fun, or the axe I started to really enjoy with my latest alpha character, and supported by ranged options of the bow and the musket rifle. But there's also magic staffs in 2 varieties, and two-handed heavy melee in hammers. All play noticeably differently, all have their own skill trees, and all can be switched to whenever you like. And of course, over time, there'll be more weapons and magics added to expand from this base. And like I said, it's all tightly skill-based. There's no tab targeting, no auto-aim, not even any aim assist for ranged weapons. And for some fresher-faced gamers used to these lazy assists in some other games, it'll come as a bit of a shock to actually have to work for some of this stuff. I found it quite refreshing. There are no class systems in the game. Your personal specialities are based on skill trees and loadout selection. Your combat style is entirely dependent on your equipped weapons and your armor. You can, with the right gear stored away, quickly switch from being a full-on heavy tank to being a defensive mage within seconds, if that's what you'd like. Though there is also a character-based trait system where you plug level-up points into traits that make you better at melee damage, or more robust, or make your ranged hit heavier, things like that. So a class specializing build-out is still a thing to consider along the way, certainly within the early game. Your armor loadout dictates your defense, obviously, but within that, there's specific resistances and passive boosts, but also weight. You can wear heavy armor and you'll get slower. You can't dodge roll, for instance, but you're tankier. Lighter armor makes you more nimble, but also more vulnerable. There's a whole balancing system of 3 different weight classes within that. And it gets a bit deeper than that even, but you get the idea. There's actually quite a deep rabbit hole for the various kinds of armors, but you have 3 kind of base types, sort of cloth, leather, and metal, basically. Beyond the basics of loadout, there's also gathering and crafting. Food, armor, weapons, and potions, you can get these from drops or collectible in the world, but they're all heavily based on crafting, and your ability to do so is skill-based. The more you do it, the better you get, the better stuff you can make. And you can either plow into becoming an expert crafter, which is a very time-heavy investment to become really good at just one of these things and be able to make high-end, powerful gear with all sorts of perks and special stuff, or you can just rely on the in-game player economy to get your gear and focus your attention and time elsewhere in the game. The cooking system alone is wildly deep, with a ton of different recipes to prepare and a bunch of different ingredients to gather or buy, all with different benefits. Some just sort of heal you, some refresh you, some boost gathering skills, some make you more effective against certain enemy types. You know the type of thing we're talking about here. And while the basic trait of food is a slower heal over time deal, potions are the instant boost kind. And what is true of consumables, with food and potions, is true of weapons and armor crafting too. These 2 entirely separate and quite different trades are also long and deep systems to invest in. There will be very few players who become high level in all of these trades, at least without plowing a ton of time into the game. With enough time, you can have your character learn all or just some of these trades, or you can specialize in just 1 or 2 and rely on the in-game market for everything else you need. It's actually quite a nice set of systems that seem to work quite well together and seem to be reasonably well balanced. Questing and such work in more or less the same way as you'd expect from this style of game. There's many quest givers in the world, mostly in towns. Mostly it's about go here, kill this, or kill that many of this thing, or gather this many animal skins, or that thing, or find X special item in Y special place, but it's done pretty competently, and all nicely wound in with the structure of the game. So it's very often you're collecting things to make your town better, for example, or for the benefit of your guild, or to explore more of the story, or world building, or lore, and things like that. And there are 3 main factions to join, each with their own thematics, priorities, and mood, and within the wider game, these 3 factions all battle for control of territory. And you can even go to war in player versus player clashes, clan versus clan. There's also smaller level PvP in open world, if that's what you want to opt into. Personally, I enjoy the PvE stuff more, so that's almost exclusively what I have been doing. Just quietly pottering about, swishing monsters and creatures here and there while exploring and gathering and crafting, and it's actually really quite nice to spend time in this world just soaking into it, just tinkering away on leveling up your crafts and skills. The biggest problem this game has, as it stands at least, is no fast travel, and I'm a long way from being the only player who has mentioned this in the forums so far. Well, there's kind of a fast travel, but it involves taking all your armor off and letting yourself be killed and respawning back at a town or campsite and such that you've prepared earlier. There's no mounts either. So this can mean you spend a lot of time just jogging between locations, and it can be slow, very slow. And you can't always take a shortcut as the crow flies, because the way the map is built, sometimes you just hit sort of impassable walls or cliffs and stuff like that. So you kind of have to stick to the paths when traveling between towns and locations. And that, frankly, can be a bit tedious. They really do need mounts or fast travel, or both, or of some kind in this game, because if your friend needs you for a quest or a battle and you're on the other side of the map, it can take way too long to get to them to make it fun, or even worth it sometimes. But that is really my main complaint with the game. Well, that, and they need to move more of the combat client side. Because in the alphas, the only server was one where I, as an Aussie, was dealing with an above ideal level of ping, and lag in combat could be a real issue for the game that is designed around fine timing of blocks and evades. But there are a bunch more servers in the alpha, so hopefully I have better luck with that. But I do think it's on pretty decent footing, and I am looking forward to the full launch. And I enjoy my time just soaking into the world they've built. I enjoy coming across other people just doing their own thing. They're gathering or fighting. I enjoy jumping in and helping them out if they're being overwhelmed by monsters or wolves. They've kind of accidentally aggroed too many beasties around them, so I'll jump in and help them out and then go on my way with a little wave. I enjoy hunting and gathering. I enjoy crafting. Hell, I even enjoyed chopping down trees and mining away on rocks and stuff. The way they've done it is pretty nice. You kind of auto-select the correct weapon that you have equipped. There's no switching or buggering about. You just go up to it and press it. And even though you're not really actively mining or chopping down a tree, the animation, the sound of it is also just kind of pleasant in its own right. I enjoy how alive the world feels with people milling about in town, all doing their own thing at quest givers or crafting stations or the town notice board, working to level up the town itself. It's pretty, at least by MMO standards, and the combat is engaging, nicely skill-based with a smooth and rewarding ability progression system, and it's just quite fun when you start nesting into combos and more advanced techniques, or start working as a team with other players to kite and control and dismantle whole camps of baddies. Even the subtler stuff, like the sound design I mentioned before, right down to the ambient feel of the open world, is great. It's chill and relaxing and wonderful and involving and nicely immersive. And that's what you want from a game like this. You want it to feel immersive, and I do feel that from this game. In short, it's worth a go, and not nearly as unready feeling as the multiple delays might have you worried about. I think that stuff is mostly due to the fine-tuning the endgame at this point. Will it be universally praised? No, of course not. What year do you live in? Is it worth a look? Absolutely, definitely worth a look. So, let me know, are you playing? Are you an alpha player like me? Are you relieved to finally be able to talk about this damn thing with other people? Or are you new to the beta? Let me know how you're finding it. Let me know about your experiences. Let me know what you feel. Let me know what you think it needs. Till then, thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and thank you as always to the patrons floating up above there. And as a reminder, I will be streaming this game while it's available in the beta, because I've been looking forward to doing that for quite some time. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. I'll catch you next time.